Dahmer's violent fantasies become reality when he crosses paths with 18-year-old Stephen Hicks looking for a ride to a nearby rock concert.
He picked up a young man that was hitchhiking and offered him a good time if he wanted to just stop and visit with him for a little bit. Jeffrey Dahmer was attracted specifically to this individual because he wasn't wearing a shirt. Throughout the evening, they drank alcohol, and I understand there might have been marijuana involved. Finally, Stephen Hicks said that I should be going.
He said we drank, he wanted to leave, and I hit him with a barbell, and I killed him. He says I didn't want him to leave me.
For sexual pleasure, he took the life of a human being.
All of Dahmer's victims were men. His attraction to men is what both motivated and repulsed him.
Never understood it. There was no use trying to fight it because I couldn't rid myself of it. It was too powerful and persistent.
Do you dislike it?
Yes, it's caused a lot of problems for me. A lot of conflicts and unanswered questions.
Jerry Boyle was Dahmer's lawyer. He believes that Jeffrey's sexuality did not lead him to violence.
He was just really very forthright with me. It is my firm belief that if he was a heterosexual, you would have killed girls.
After Dahmer dismembers Stephen Hicks's corpse and stuffs the remains in a deep drainage pipe in his parents' backyard, he panics and decides to dig up the body parts and dispose of them elsewhere.
He decided late at night, towards midnight, to drive it to a local dump. He was so nervous that he was driving erratically, he was stopped by a police officer. Mr. Dahmer kept his wits about him. He told the police officer that his parents had recently divorced. He said he couldn't sleep and wanted to take a garbage bag to the garbage dump. The police officer shined a flashlight in, saw a green garbage bag.
The officer had no reason whatsoever to believe that there was anything unusual other than he might have been a little bit nervous, but most people are nervous when there's a traffic stop made.
Jeff was very good by that point at convincing adults for whatever it was he wanted to convince them of.
Jeffrey Dahmer definitely was a manipulator. He was able to convince not only the individuals to come to his place, but he was also able to convince people that nothing was wrong when there was something very wrong.
It all could have ended at that moment, but in the first of many close calls when he could have been stopped, Dahmer's let off with only a ticket.
He took them home, smashed them all up, and spread the bones in the woods.
Dahmer's grandmother believes that through God, Jeffrey will change his sexuality. So he attends church and gets a job drawing blood at a local blood bank. But at this point, his depraved urges become harder and harder to control, and he acts out. He exposes himself to a group of women and children at the Wisconsin State Fair and is arrested. In court, he appears remorseful, which will become a routine for him. And all he gets is a fine, $50 plus court fees. At this point, Dahmer tries to find a substitute for killing. And what he settles on is truly disturbing.
He spent a number of months, if not longer, going to gay bathhouses in both Chicago and Milwaukee. He would slip halcyon into the drinks of men that he would meet there. They would fall asleep. He would fondle them, pretending in his own mind that they were dead.
That was satisfying to him for a time, but he gave too much of the drug to one of the men.
The bathhouse operator couldn't wake one of these fellows, and they had to get medical help. They realized that Dahmer is doing this, so they banned him from the bathhouses.
Once again, he could have been stopped, and once again, he wasn't. It's at this time Dahmer hones his craft in disposing of bodies, learning how flesh dissolves in acid and bones would need to be crushed up and tossed in the trash. According to Lionel, his grandmother objects to the smells coming from the basement, but apparently doesn't figure out what's going on, or maybe she just doesn't want to.
I would send Lionel up to his mother's house to deal with problems, but I really wasn't aware at that time that Lionel was too naive to handle the situation. Lionel didn't believe his son was doing anything wrong.
He was doing strange things. We thought it was with roadkill. That's what he told us, and I believed him. But I said, Jeff, you know, your grandma just can't take this sort of thing.
Now on his own, Jeffrey Dahmer is free to give in to his urges. Just one day after moving into his own apartment, Dahmer brings home a 13-year-old boy, drugs, and fondles him. Dahmer is arrested for sexual assault against a minor. This is the boy's testimony. We should warn you, it's shocking and disturbing.
He grabbed my penis.
He went under your underwear and grabbed your penis?
Yes, he did.
How did the authorities find out about this? Well, for some reason, when the boy wanted to leave, Dahmer let him go.
He said, wait, don't forget your money, and don't tell no one that I'm doing this.
We talked about the incident that he was involved in. It was pretty clear to me that he's a little bit different.
Jerry Boyle is hired by Lionel and Sherry Dahmer to represent Jeffrey in this case.
I think my son was in freshman in high school at the time. I think he could have whipped Dahmer in a minute. Never would have believed that he was a killer, ever. Because there was nothing to indicate to me that he was that way. I mean, it just wasn't there.
Dahmer's ability to deceive is only matched by his desire to kill. Between his conviction in January of 1989 and his sentencing in May, he is not deterred. Dahmer takes his fifth life, 24-year-old Anthony Sears, on March 25th. This murder marks a depraved turning point in Dahmer's process.
I kept the mummified head and skull of one of the victims in a carrying case in my locker at work.
Were you almost flaunting it?
Yes, but that's how strong the compulsion was. That's how bizarre the desire was. I wanted to keep something of the person with me.
But during the sexual assault trial, no one had any knowledge of that, which is why Jerry Boyle fought to keep Dahmer a free man.
The outcome of the case was Jeffrey admitted to everything he was accused of, except he was vehement in saying that he never touched a child. I didn't believe what he was telling me, but my job is to try and figure out what to do for him and for society by getting him a sentence that made sense, and I think we did that.
He fooled his attorney that was representing him. He fooled so many people as to his real feelings. Unfortunately, I didn't realize it at the time.
Dahmer avoids jail time. Instead, he's given work release and mandatory time with a mental health professional. Another close call, another opportunity where he could have been stopped, and once again, he acts remorseful. He writes to the judge, "What I did was deplorable. The world has enough misery in it without my adding more to it. Sir, I can assure you that it will never happen again." We now know nothing could be further from the truth.
He would go see a psychiatrist and not say a word for 10 sessions. And they'd let him walk out the door.